As the beautiful fall season unfolds, how about we create a simple sketch together? If you can draw circles with a marker like this, creating a small soothing landscape like this will just take you about 15 minutes. No need for complexity, just some gentle doodling. I will be here to guide you step by step. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's great to have you here. Today I'm going to work with my trusty Ohuhu markers as usual. Big thanks to Ohuhu for making this video possible. I'm also very excited to try out their new liquid fineliner. I must say I'm quite impressed with this set of pens. They feel really comfortable to hold. It's waterproof and alcohol-proof ink. It flows very smoothly, plus it dries quickly so it doesn't smudge with alcohol markers. You will find the link to these art supplies and the special discount code in the description box below. Grab a pencil, let's dive into some easy sketching. For our reference, I'm using a random photo I took. I like how this tree looks very cozy and cheerful. While starting by drawing the tree trunk, I decided to do 3 sections. The rest of it will be hidden by the foliage. Remember the techniques I have shared in my previous tutorials. It's time to use that again. Let's sketch some circles where each circle represents a cluster of leaves. The key here is to vary the sizes and don't make them line up all symmetrically. We want them to look random. If you watched my other tutorials, I hope you are not tired of me repeating the steps. They're super practical and that's how precisely I do it all the time. Now this is going to be our basic outline, pretty simple, right? Let's erase the pencil outline. I usually use an HB pencil so it won't smudge too much. You want to erase just enough to see the outline, but not so much that it will show through our marker inflator. Let's pick a light yellow color, but not too pale. Begin by drawing in circular motion to fill in each circles we drew earlier. One thing I haven't mentioned before is how you hold your marker. Try holding it a bit higher like I'm doing here. I usually grip the marker somewhere in the middle or higher. This way you can create longer strokes more easily because your wrist acts like a pivot point. When it comes to small dots and details, I will hold it lower. With practice, this will become our second nature. I'm trying to vary my speed and the strength of my strokes so that some areas appear lighter while others come out darker. I'm pretty light-handed with the paper at first. This will give our tree a natural texture look, hopefully making it feel more organic and less blocky. So I mix it up by using both small and larger circles and throwing some small dots for a stippling effect. Don't be discouraged if it takes a little practice to get it just right. I did quite a bit of experimenting to find the perfect strokes for this tree. In the end, I settled on a simple circular motion to give it that cozy, fluffy look we all love in a fall scene. Now before our ink is completely dry, switch over to a slightly darker yellow or even a warm orange. I went with orange because it adds a touch of warmth and cheers to the scene. Simply repeat the steps to layer in a darker color. Keep in mind we are working with a light source coming from the upper left, so the lower right side of the tree naturally gets a bit more shadow, which is where we will focus on adding those darker tones. Now let's take a moment and let that ink dry. While we are waiting, we can use a cool gray color to sketch the tree trunk. During my practice sessions, I experimented with warm gray color as well. But I have found that using cooler shades here brings a nicer balance to the scene. When you are shading the tree trunk, try to make the shadow shape a bit irregular, thinner in some places, thicker in the others. This way it will not look like a plain smooth cylinder. Add a few dots or slanted strokes for extra texture. Now let's use the short edge of our marker to draw some branches. To give our color a more lively feel, I'm going to introduce a little green onto the tree and working on drawing the grass. The grass is quite simple. You can use the bottom edge of the marker to draw from top to bottom or the other way around, creating these strokes to mimic the look of the grass blades. Here, I want to introduce a cool complementary color, purple in the shadow area to tone down the orange just a little. The composition and color palette are looking good so far. I'm noticing the paper is a bit warped and might seem a little blotchy. I'm kind of torn between starting all over or pushing through. But let's trust the process. When we are learning to draw, completing each drawing can be very important. Whether we are feeling super confident or not, finishing the whole process is where we can learn the most. Now, since the paper got a bit more ink than it can handle, we will give it a moment to dry. Feel free to take a short break, grab some water, stretch your legs, and move around a bit. It's always good to refresh and come back with a fresh perspective. For the tree trunk, as always, remember to add those dark values to the side that's away from the sunlight. We can take a look at the tree trunk. The part that is closer to the foliage will appear darker since the leaves block out the sunlight. So far, everything is looking good, but before we dive into adding more darker colors, let's take a moment to sketch some foreground grass and background trees. Whenever I'm drawing trees, I like to weave in a bit of story in their surroundings. It's a simple practice. For the background trees, all we need to do is draw some horizontal strokes to create a silhouette. And remember what I have mentioned about how you hold your marker. When I'm drawing the grass, I hold my markers a bit higher to create these long, crisp strokes. If we use warm colors entirely throughout the whole drawing, it may get a bit overwhelming. To keep things balanced, let's introduce some cooler colors in the background. I remember there's a concept called atmospheric perspective, where objects in the foreground appear more vibrant, while those in the background appear more muted. By following some basic rules, we can create a well-balanced drawing. We can add some extra depth to the tree trunk. All we need to do is go back to what we did earlier, Layer on another darker gray, especially underneath the foliage. Sometimes, to speed up the drying process, I use a little USB fan. It's tiny, but it does the trick. Now grab a dark color to introduce some cool shadows. Try not to overdo it. Let's keep it around 20%. Notice how I'm holding my marker a bit lower now, since we are working on smaller areas. Let's give our ink a moment to dry. We can use this time to add more details in both the foreground and background. Drawing rocks is often easier for me than plants, so I will draw a couple of them here. I like to keep them simple in my drawings. As they say, less is more. Oftentimes, it speeds up my process. It also boosts my confidence and motivation. Now in the foreground, we have got those light values covered. It's time to move on to the midtones. Remember, no matter what you are drawing, as long as you combine 2 to 3 shades of a hue from light to dark, you will be able to create that sense of depth. Having just one tree right in the middle of the drawing doesn't quite give that natural look, so let's introduce a couple friends to it. But remember, make sure the distance between these trees isn't all equal. I'm going to let the front tree cover a bit of the other two. We will just use some lighter colors to add a bit of more foliage, and they will be good to go. Now time to add those dark values to the right side of the tree trunk and the area close to the foliage. Let's bring some very dark colors to add that extra pop of contrast with just a few depths. Now let's do some line work to refine the shape of the certain elements. Adding some lines to the shadow side of the tree trunk here. I like to enhance the line work in the shadow areas. It really grounds our drawing. The scene in the foreground need more attention, so let's sketch in some outline to make them stand out. Everything is really starting to come together now. Just a few gentle strokes of blue to fill in the sky. I'm really glad I stuck with the process and didn't give up in the middle of the drawing. It's time to add those highlights and let our drawing shine. Now let's pick a color to draw some flowers. Just a few dots. It's the little simplest things that always bring such a great joy. From this point, I'm going to slow things down a bit, but continue to add those subtle details to both the foreground and background. I really hope you have enjoyed reading this fall drawing with me. I hope this drawing brings you a sense of joy. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next video.